Welcome back. This is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, again joined by L. Rob Hubbard below me this time, and by our guest, John Michael McCarthy, JMM, Mike McCarthy, John McCarthy. He goes by Mike, known professionally as either JMM or John Michael McCarthy. This is a reunion for Rob and Mike. Since they both worked on Superstar Lit AD together.
Oh,
but we are
Robert,
here today.
Did you get one of these? Did you get one of these rare silkscreen posters?
I did not.
Nobody did, but if you ever come to Memphis, I only have like 2 or 3 left, and you can have one.
I do have like from the one of the posters that was kind of like the cover art for the for the VHS and DVD.
Yeah, the coma thing or whatever.
Yeah, and a script. So,
okay, well, those are all rare items. Anyway, you're wanted in the Butt Hut. Just, it's been 25 years. You're late.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's hard to believe. Well.
It's hard to believe you're still talking to me, honestly. After
why,
Greg? I make hard work. What would you call it, Robert? Hard-earned enemies, or
I don't know. It wasn't enemies. I do recall at the time because I was sent out to get a lot to pick up a lot of items, and I remember like in a couple of places that I was sent to. And then I was explaining what I wanted, and then they would say, "This is for McCarthy," and there was a certain said in a certain tone and a certain look. But oh no, I would say it was hard. It was hard, but you were not. But I will say that was not the worst. That was nowhere near the worst production experience that I've encountered so far.
Why did you work with Greg? Is that your worst?
He's just been on a million movies. So
Greg's not wearing any shirt or pants, underwear, or anything. He's just like Hugh Hefner. It's the first thing I thought of when I saw that image of. It's like what would Hugh Hefner look like in Cabinet of Caligari? That's kind of what's going on with Greg.
Exactly what I'm going for.
I'm like, damn, how does he get that effect? I'm just here we go. Change your topic.
This is what we've got to talk about today. So
Robert, we need to catch up on the phone or something, okay?
Definitely.
Off camera.
Superstar Lit AD gets re-released, we'll have you back on, and you guys can just talk forever about stories about that. But first off, let's start off by saying, where can people get this movie? How can people get this movie? Because it has been available for many years.
Yeah, Something Weird Video put it out in '95 on VHS, and that was their first new release of any kind of new product. And that, I think the best year that it had, it was number 22 on the top 100 list the year it came out on Something Weird. And then there was this big vacuum where I was racing to try to do other things, make other things, Sore Loser, Superstar Lit AD. And Teenage Tupelo kind of got lost in the whole DVD market, I suppose. And but around 2005, was it 18 years ago, I started trying to think about it. Well, at the time, a 10-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
But as Robert can attest, the way Gorilla Monster works is I kind of thought I would be rewarded for being different or eccentric, or, having something personal to say, or coming out of Fantagraphics books or comics or rock and roll, punk rock, Memphis scene. But that was not the case. As far as obscurity and esoteric stuff go, I'm still right there at the top of the heap. And so it's taken a while to get this current version out. And basically it means finding a patron, Dennis Black, who runs Black and White Records, and what, 18 years later, after beginning to planning, we have the Blu-ray out now that you can get. I guess if I put a link on, Greg, if I put a link on something affiliated with this podcast, people could buy it directly from me.
Sure. Just afterwards, tell us what you want us to link, and we'll link it afterwards.
Yeah, that's fine. I have a page. It doesn't literally have Teen Tube posted on it. It's still got Sore Losers and Cigarette Girl, but you can just hit click here and buy the movie for I guess $40. It's a 50 gigabyte dual layer Blu-ray that's got about 75 menu clicks on it. It's got a bunch of stuff on it.
Oh wow!
I remember at the time, 2008, because I think you, like on 2009, you did a showing at Underground Film Festival in Memphis at the time, and there were plans for a DVD release. And I think some of those links are still up on the Gorilla Monster site. If you dig, lots of information.
That is so old. That site needs so many updates. My brother Ronnie built a site for me, and I kind of just use it as an excuse to keep my YouTube channel up.
And I remember wondering, because I think at the time there were some sample files posted then, and even that, even the work done at that time looked pretty good. But I expect that for this, since it has been like over 10 years that with the new technology, they were kind of managed to go back in and do a whole new restoration. I guess started from scratch and like cleaned everything up, recolor timed it, things like that. I
Gave the actors a bath. Did you guys see the new movie that link I sent?
Yes.
We saw. We got to see some of the footage. Didn't see the Blu-ray, but saw the preview footage, and it looks great. But I will say, to be honest, I don't mind watching it on VHS. It seems appropriate because in my mind, I first caught it when it came out on VHS, and it is associated with Something Weird video. And like when I saw it, I mean, my first thought was like I was watching somebody who had watched the entire Something Weird catalog and compressed it down and put it into a single movie, because it goes from, there's rockabilly in it, there's juvenile delinquents, there are girl gangs, there's sexploitation, there's a bit of horror.
Scopatones.
Yeah, Scopatones. Yeah, I mean it's and when you did this, it's like, I would say it's like the first postmodern Grindhouse movie, because you did this before Quentin Tarantino came out with the Grindhouse revival stuff, and it's put through all this stuff from 50s and 60s pop culture, is just put through the wood chipper and comes out with your own sensibility to it. It's quite a surreal experience. It blew my mind at the time. I think
well, we could probably talk about this for longer than 40 minutes, but are you guys familiar now with the film criticism that's toward meta modernism in film?
Not really.
And I'm beginning to wonder if the exploitation stuff that I was doing, maybe others were doing at the time, was a doorway into meta modern, where you're allowing modern film from like post-war America, which is just classic, hero villain stuff, which basically, I guess, Star Wars was sort of a re-examination of that. You're allowing meta modern to sort of, you talk about the wood chipper, you're taking that to postmodernism. Like you're taking Easy Rider and you're actually letting them live at the end, because they're American, the new American construct or something. But yeah, no, you're right. I was completely amazed and blown away by Something Weird video and Mike Franey and Lisa Petrucci, because I thought I'd kind of, you hit that point in your, I don't know, late 20s, where you're like, okay, I've listened to all this cool music, I've read these comic books, I've seen a bunch of movies. But at that time, VHS and that kind of stuff was making it, you were allowed to see exploitation films, especially thanks to Something Weird. And every time I drew I did watercolor covers for Mike Vraney at Something Weird. And every time I created a cover for usually some of his trailer series, he would pay me in 10 movies. And my friends would come over and we would have TV parties, like crazy, just watching this stuff. And when you realize, it's almost like, you can't master the guitar until you hear the Ramones, and then you realize, okay, I could do that. It's kind of like you can't really make a movie until you see someone else do it in a way that you can assimilate it.
I got you. Like Herschel Gordon Lewis or somebody. You say, I can do that.
Right. Well, but then it's like, but not repeat what they did. But
Right.
to me, the key of this whole thing, so far, like, it's been 20 years with the Sore Losers and the cycle of Robert Super Starlight AD, and everything. There seems to be an interest in my work where this Shaputa Records is putting out the vinyl soundtrack to Super Starlight AD. It never happened 20 years ago, but they put out Sore Losers, they put out Teenage Tupelo, doing something original within the exploitation framework, postmodern, metamodern, whatever you want to call it, that has at least some value, God, at least to Europeans or somebody, where someone will put up the money to put this stuff out again, so that, several thousand people over the planet can enjoy completely unfettered punk rock movie making. Well, I don't know if that answers your question. I go off on a, cloud tangent, whatever.
That's fine. I can say, looking at it now, I found the tape at some point mid 2000s, and just looking at it now and having seen like some of your other work, I just also got the Damn Elvis disc couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And now, like, some 30 years later, it's kind of like more, it seems like now your work is in a position to be appreciated now more than at the time that you made it. Because with when your name comes up, probably what most people would think of is Sore Losers or Super Starlet. Teenage Tupelo, it's almost not quite like the work that they would expect from you if they've seen those earlier films. This is kind of more like the low budget melodramas of like late 50s, early 60s, and I think that was the look that you were going for, and in the midst of this is like this like melodrama and pop culture and personal history, and that's always been like major threads of all your work.
Well, yeah, I get compared to, I called myself the gay Russ Meyer or the straight John Waters, because apparently those are the only two people that any reviewers could really bring up. Like, anything more obscure than that, and nobody would know who they're talking about, I guess. But you guys have seen, huh?
I'm sorry. You mentioned on the Damn Elvis commentary that some reviewer, I guess, referred to you as a pawn shop Kubrick.
Pawn shop Kubrick, I'll take that. Yeah,
which was, I can see that. That's acceptable for Damn Elvis. That's
sure.
Not praise at all. So,
no, I was just saying that I watched. I really. I don't know what word to use, loved or influenced, or Russ Meyer's black and white movies like Lorna, where you've got, you mentioned soap operas, but you've got a naked girl story. It's like she's going through romance problems and issues with her boyfriend, and but she's kind of also topless for half of it. And I thought, well, there's a way to get a guy to watch a soap opera, but in my particular case, making Teenage Tupelo semi-autobiographical, coming off of the semi-autobio comic book trends that were happening in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, and all that, I thought, well, I'd kind of like to be the graphic novelist or the cartoonist that actually springboards from graphic novels and starts doing movies. And so there's a lot of Love and Rockets comic books meets Russ Meyer's Lorna meets Who the Hell Is My Father, you know, in that. And that's why I think Teenage Tupelo will probably be the most long lasting. If anyone cares to look at this stuff or find any worth in it at all, it'll probably stand the test of time, because the other movies really are more like almost like film class romps, the tropes of exploitation films, whereas, and Teenage Tupelo has that too, as Greg was saying, but it's more of a personal story, and Fantagraphics is putting this book out. So it's kind of cool to be full circle 30 years later, coming back to Fantagraphics after leaving them to do this coffee table book, which will be like 340 pages of beautiful photographs of Delana and the Man-Haters and the Memphis punk and film scene circa, you know, mid-90s.
Now that
There's
book from
the cover.
Fantagraphics, it's also been in the works. I think it was scheduled. I think it was originally scheduled to come out originally like in 2008. This is just, I guess, just focuses on Teenage Tupelo alone, correct? Or
The book?
Things at that time, yeah.
Yes, but Teenage Tupelo lays the seed for Super Starlet, because, you know,
Right.
Trash's Trailer is the movie inside the movie is the post-apocalyptic prototype for Super Starlet AD. And what I was riffing on in Super Starlet, and, you know, Delana was supposed to have been in Super Starlet AD. At the end of Sore Losers, you know, the world ends. I don't want to give too much away, but
spoiler kids.
So in a way, Teen Tube, Sore Losers, and Super Starlet are related in that way. And then when we would show the movies on the road, we would film girls who wanted to be in new Stag Loops, and those became Super 8 features, filler like Shine On and Broad Daylight. That was the 90s, you know, thing. And
your own universe, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's the JMM
right
universe.
Actually,
yeah.
I caught when I saw Super Starlet AD, I caught that it was based on the movie with the Trash's Trailerist. There is a lot to Teenage Tupelo that I missed the first time around, that I only figured out later. I'm not even sure how I figured it out, but I think it was I saw there was a tagline for Teenage Tupelo that came up on IMDb that I hadn't seen before. And the tagline was, do you want to see dirty pictures of my mother?
Naked pictures
of my mother.
Yeah.
And up until that top point, I didn't realize that Teenage Tupelo was supposed to be sort of an autobiography, a fantasy autobiography, I guess.
Well, Greg, you know, you really know that you're living life to the fullest when you can, if you were going to make a movie about your life and the byline was basically something some jerk told you in high school, you know, like, hey, you want to see some naked pictures of your mother? And I'm like, no, motherfucker, I'm going to make a movie about it. You know, I'll make my own pictures. Thank you very much. If I only knew who she was. So, yeah.
And also, sort of, with Damn Elvis, daughter of Elvis, I finally got to see that thanks to Saturn's Core, which just released it.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
No,
it was a lot of
I know.
But
yeah,
Teenage Tupelo was a huge step forward, I thought.
It holds
it's
up
on film, you know.
Yeah. Damn Stills holds up better than you think, and then Teenage Tupelo, where you jump from video to Super 8, and actually that sort of, when I first heard about it, that kind of blew my mind. That there was this feature film that you shot on Super 8 film, that you could do that, and make it look as good, just as good as, say, like anything shot on 16 at the time.
Well, it's called
Which
uh, meeting somebody. Man, you know, you guys have had happy accidents in your life and all that. And Kristen Hobbs, who plays Frankie in the movie, one of the Man-Haters, she's on the far left of the car there. She was the manager at Sun Studio for a while. And but before that, she worked at Cat's Music, Cat's CDs and compact disc cassettes, all that. And she worked with a guy named Darren Ipema. And so at the Antenna Club one night, she introduces me to Darren. And Darren is, of course, a graduate of University of Memphis, Memphis State at the time. And he had this worthless film degree. I say worthless because I think a lot of kids go to film school wanting to be, you know, George Lucas, and they wind up coming out of it being a grip or a, you know, best boy or something, because you have to make a living. And if that's what you want to do, that's what you do. And so she hooked me up with Darren and my ex-wife now, Kim, Dawn Ashcraft, who's on the far right of the car. And Darren moved in with us, pitched in on the money to help make the film, shot the film from a very keen eye of being a very technical cinematographer, and then later shot The Sore Losers as well. I could not have it. I guess this myth that comes down from Russ Meyer or John Waters that, okay, you wrote it, you directed it, you produced it, now you've got to film it yourself. I just couldn't do that. I didn't want to do it, and it would have led to the movies looking horrible. Even though it's cool that they're shot on film, they would have looked bad if I had done it. So I was working with a really great guy there in Darren.
Cool.
No, he was he was like an invaluable collaborator, and
yeah,
and part of the, and in terms of part of your work throughout, you had collaborators, Stephen Wheat, Buckley, through the years, several other people who I don't think I've met, or just met briefly when I was the time when I was
you
down
remember
there.
Emmy College.
Yeah.
I mean, all you guys were great. And I envision the scenario that when I die, or maybe it's how I die, you guys all get together and shoot me. Not film me, but actually shoot me, because I said I would take a bullet for any of you guys, and then you literally take it seriously, and then you kill me at the end of my life. But give me another 10 years at least.
No.
Well, here's a question. Here's a question for you, having seen like your work, because there's a period of work. Super Starlet was the last feature for a while. Troma put out.
Yeah.
And through the 2000s, so you're busy. I mean, you're raising a family because you had Hannah. You're doing music videos, you're doing shorts, and your style is evolving, because I believe the next main short was Elvis Meets the Beatles.
That was on the heels of Super Starlet.
Right. Which was great in terms of the subject and the handling, and no nudity, which you started to get known for.
Well, behind the camera.
No.
But then you start doing music again, with Fingers Like Saturn, and various projects with other collaborators. How was it work? You still had like people like Emmy and Wheat involved when they could be, but how is it in terms of like working with different collaborators through that? I guess say like through your last 10 years or so of work.
Well, I've been so lucky to work with a core group of people that understand what I'm trying to do. Like Wheat, for instance. Wheat, who edited a lot of the bonus features on the Teen Toop Blu-ray. Usually when he would edit something, I would just shake my head and go, yeah, that's perfect, because there's a symbiotic kind of thing that begins to happen after 25 years or so. And there's stuff on there by Emmy too, but I don't really know how to answer your question other than to say, Emmy said I was the most optimistic cynic or cynical optimist he'd ever met, because raising Hannah was born in 99. My son John was born in 2004. Of course, just when you thought pop culture was on such a narrow, downward, dark slope, because basically the corporatization of everything, kids don't know how to have fun, adults don't know how to have fun anymore. I mean, their idea of fun is usually wrapped around something that costs a lot of money and, you know, crass consumerism and things like that. It's like going into this century, trying to figure out how to get money out of people to make a movie, which obviously will probably not make their money back. You start looking for patrons instead of investors. It's really not a matter of the crew or the friends that I was working with changing. It was the kind of patron that I began to look for, who was, you know, different. Like in the case of Dennis Black, is like showing him a body of work that's 2 decades old and saying, you know, hey, thanks for putting out the Fingers Like Saturn record. Have you ever thought about putting out, you know, could I talk you into putting out Teenage Tupelo, and getting that sort of trust that that we have to have. And I've written some new screenplays, and I'm content having them set on a shelf until my son or my grandson, or maybe some nearsighted geek who lives in Ohio who discovers me online, can just hit a couple of keys with AI and create my movie in the future without any bullshit of like finding money or people crew like you to harass or anyone like that. You know what I'm saying? It's going to come to the point where even underground artists can use AI to make their own animatronic, I think, films. And then all this griping and complaining about how you can't get your angst out because you just can't get the money or the people to take off their clothes or be the, you know, all that's over with, because you'll have a way to have it figured out. So I think I've wasted a colossal amount of time by not getting ideas out of my head because I couldn't find people with money to help me. And Robert, I'm not going to, I think the expectation was for me to just keep on making low budget movies as my intellect and my craft became better towards making. Just because it's low budget doesn't mean it has to be shitty, you know?
Right.
But it kind of has to be shitty if you want to make, if you go from being the pawn shop Kubrick to actually being Kubrick. At what point does, you know, someone go, oh, okay, Mike, we, you know, away with the gatekeepers, let this guy in, let him on the yacht, you know, let him make a movie. I like to think I could have been that guy. Maybe I still can, but you know, we look up to David Lynch, we look up to Linklater, we look up to this last wave of 90s filmmakers who apparently got invited onto the yacht. And it would nice to still do that while I, you know, before my hand starts to shake or, you know, I lose control of my kidneys or something like that. It'd be nice to make another, I've gotten a couple of screenplays written. It'd be nice to make them. But it seems like almost like the happy accident when somebody comes around and goes, hey, here's $50,000, you know, or whatever the amount might be.
Absolutely. Look, you need people have different skill sets, right? So you're a creative type who can make something, but you need somebody who can market in your corner to be able to get something done. That's just the harsh reality of everything. But you know what? I wanted to bring back to a different question because the idea of Elvis runs through at least the early movies and into the late movies. And there's something on the poster here to Teenage Tupelo that's a bit mysterious. I thought you might discuss what was in your mind there. That's the tagline at the top that says, "What if the twin had lived?" And
well, Greg, I'm glad you asked. And if I have a heart attack and fall over, Robert can take it from here, right, Robert?
Okay.
The Fantagraphics Underground book that's coming out, I guess in August or September, will do an incredible deep dive. It's going to be such a deep dive into the Elvis metaphorical, you know, symbolic odyssey of how Elvis is plugged into all my movies. It's so deep dive, you may get the cramps, you know, so don't eat before you read the book. But
So the true gospel, so the whole gospel Elvis will be
the gospel of this was in there. Well, there's references back to Damsel was Daughter of Elvis. Of course, Elvis meets the Beatles. But what if the twin had lived refers to Jesse Garon Presley, the Elvis's twin, who was born first and was born dead, and then Elvis was born a few minutes later, and then the gospel of this that Robert mentions is the cosmology, the religion that's based on the boyhood of Elvis in Tupelo and his flight from Tupelo, a la Moses' flight from Egypt, a la, the boyhood of mythical Jesus, that kind of thing. In other words, it's not that I believe in any of this. It's just that I don't not believe in it because it's based on archetypal Carl Jungian stuff, energy that you can't deny. It's all theoretical and seems to have been proven over a couple thousand years. So I'm just having fun with the way that there are other meta reasons Elvis is popular other than having been the greatest entertainer of the 20th century. To
a large extent. I think in the commentary to Dam's Elvis, you got into this idea, which I kind of see, is that the Elvis is like the new God. He's replaced Christianity. He's a symbol of pop culture as the new common uniting religion of at least the American people. Is that?
Yeah, well, everything that America has, they borrowed from Europe and the Middle East and so forth and so on, and that really includes religion. We're backed up by Jewish tradition, and then lately I've gotten into this. There was a documentary called Caesar's Messiah that you can look at in completion on I don't know who put it out. It's on YouTube anyway for free. Okay. It's about how the Roman emperors, the Vespasian line, Titus and Vespasian and Domitian, those particular father and two sons, created Christianity as the first wave of anti-Semitism against the Jews. And then, of course, 300 years later, it does away with all Roman construct of everything that they set out to conquer. Apparently, the Jews were hard to beat for 100 years. So the Romans said, to hell with this, let's just bring their Messiah forward. And, when we conquer other places, they'll believe in Jesus, because anybody can be a Christian, but you can only be a Jew if you're born of a Jew. So all that stuff fascinates me because, to me, it's all bullshit. but it has influenced 2,000 years of sitting here in a chair or driving down the road, as Romans would have us do things, and will ultimately be our demise. So I think, as in the Damsel was Daughter of Elvis, in one of the interviews or the director's commentary that Mike Hunchback conducted, I say that I don't believe in Jesus, but I believe in Elvis, and Elvis believed in Jesus. And that's good enough for me. I mean, let's get deep here, folks. This is all bullshit. Let's move on. Let's build a spaceship. Let's get the fuck out of here. Robert, I'm counting on you to do it.
Okay, I'm trying. To get back to another aspect of teenage Tupelo, it kind of makes I guess in this release, it kind of you kind of come full circle, because another part of what you've been involved in has been sort of this cultural activism around Memphis, the destruction of certain.
Well, yeah, you don't. Yeah, we have 2.5 minutes left. I think Greg is telling us.
Okay.
But you bring up this. Great. You don't go through Nazareth knocking down Jesus's shit, right? So you don't go through Memphis knocking down Elvis's stuff. That's all I've tried to protect. That's all I'm trying to say. And that goes for blues artists, country artists, rockabilly, gospel, soul. You don't knock down people, the greatest entertainers, the greatest city that created rock and roll. You don't change our landscape. That's why people want to come here for the next 1,000 years. That's all I've tried to do. And good Lord, used a sizable amount of time to do it. And if you watch my films, Teenage Tupelo, Damsel was Sore Loser, Super Starlet, as you know, you see the wasteland that we would go in to shoot, where people were knocking down the American century as it was reflected in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
Great. Now, we always ask, and I can tie this in. We always ask people what their hometown is. I think Memphis seems like your hometown. And
Well, I was conceived in Tupelo, but where were you conceived, Greg?
here in Louisville.
So, okay, so you're
dad,
still living in, okay, all right.
My dad will always tell me the building I was conceived in. When we drive past it, he'll point it out. So,
Ouch.
but what we like to ask for a restaurant recommendation. Is there something Elvis themed maybe that's out there?
Well, I've been going to Pete and Sam's a lot lately and having the sangria. It's really good. You can't go wrong with the barbecue shop on Madison, wet ribs. I'm trying to think. I've just written a screenplay about Alex Chilton producing The Cramps in the late 70s, and I got lots of restaurant references in that. Some of them don't exist anymore, though.
I think that's good enough because we're about to run out of time. So there was so much to talk about. Maybe we'll have you on later. Put another movie out so we can have you on again and finish this discussion.
You don't happen to have $350,000, do you, Greg?
Maybe later.
Check.
That laughter tells me yes. The laughter says yes.
All right. Maybe in a few years. We're signing off now. Bye-bye.